Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is your
As I walk through the valley where I harvest my grain
for my homies.
Photo News Fix. This fix is brought to you by Squarespace. Now, as you know by now, I've been using Squarespace for JaredPolin.com for well over 10 years.
10 years.
Now, there's a reason I've been using Squarespace for my own personal portfolio for that long, because it's just so damn simple to use. Just drag and drop and move things around because there is no coding needed. In fact, it took me less than 5 minutes to put up this new gallery of my poison photos from a recent concert. To get a 14-day free trial, head on over to squarespace.com/FroKnowsPhoto. If you decide it's for you, use the code FroKnowsPhoto at checkout to get 10% off your first order. I don't know why people think I'm always yelling, because I'm yelling. I like to project. First up, last week, Nikon announced their latest in affordable fast 2.8 glass in the way of the 17-28 2.8. The 17-28 joined the already announced 28-75 2.8, and now Nikon has shared an updated lens roadmap for their lineup, which includes a 12-28 PZ 35mm, 135mm, and a very interesting zooming 70-180. Now, before we go further, there are still seven other Z lenses currently on the roadmap that have yet to be announced. If my math is correct, 7 + 5 equals phone call. Who could that be? Hello?
You're failing us.
It's Greta Thunberg.
It's 12, you moron. 7 + 5 is 12. How dare you?
Okay, thanks, Greta Thunberg. Anyway, the 35mm might be a 1.2 as it's on the same line as the 50 1.2 and yet to be announced 85, which we think will be a 1.2, or I think we know by now will be a 1.2 as well. Now, you should know by now that I'm in love with 35 1.2s, so this would be a solid Nikon release if true.
That is true.
Speaking of things I love, I also love the 135, and my guess is that the 135 would be a 1.8 lens. But what will the 70-180 be? Oh, pick me, pick me.
Yes.
Thanks for picking me. Is it a Tamron? Phone call. Hello?
How dare you?
Now, there's been a ton of speculation that Nikon simply rebranded Tamron E-mount lenses as Z lenses with some cosmetic changes. Now, even though Nikon doesn't comment on rumors, I do. At this point, I think it's pretty clear with the inclusion of the 70-180 on the roadmap that the trinity of cheaper 2.8 lenses are all Tamron lenses.
You're gonna lose your farm, pal.
And it would make sense since Nikon recently opened up their mount to Tamron. Now, I personally have no issue with Nikon doing this.
Of course you don't.
If this allows them to get better glass out quicker and into the hands of their users, then this is a great move by them. What do you think about this move? Let me know down below. Next up, Sony Alpha Rumors, who we haven't heard from in quite a while, is reporting that the Sony a7R5 will be announced on October 26th. They were told by a reliable source that it will be announced on the 26th at 3 p.m. London time, which is like next year in Canadian time, if my math is correct.
How dare you?
Other than that, they actually have no rumored specs at this time. Now, as I've said a few times before, the a7R5 probably was going to be released a year ago, but due to the chip shortages and other factors, it was held back. So what will an a7R5 bring us this time around that the a7R4 didn't have? Will they go with a much larger sensor than the current 61, or simply update the 61 and make it even better? Now, I don't think the body or shooting speed will change much either, and honestly, I think this might be a tweener update unless they go mega megapixels.
Huge.
The good news is Steven and I will be diving deeper on what we think the a7R5 will be on the next Raw Talk podcast that comes out every Friday. If you've missed any of the last 17 episodes, head on over to FroKnowsPhoto.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts to check them out. If you did listen to the last podcast, be sure to use the secret hashtag that I told you to use down below.
A crummy commercial?
And finally, Sony has released a new stills-focused camera. Another phone call? Hello? Who's this? Keisha? Keisha with Sony PR? Where's Davida? Anyway, what's up? Oh, it's not a stills camera? Oh, okay, it's video. All right, thanks. Bye, Keisha. What, you've never run into a Keisha? Anyway, Sony's latest camera is called the FX30, which is considered the baby sibling to the FX3. FX30 gonna give it to you. FX30 gonna give it. That doesn't have the same punch as X gonna give it to you. X gonna give it to you. X gonna give it to you. So what's different, you may be asking? Well, even though the FX30 shares the same body and form factor of the full-frame FX3, it's not a full-frame camera because it has a 26 megapixel BSI APS-C size sensor. Sony is angling this camera to be a cinema camera for new creators who want that cinema look but don't want that cinema price. Now would be a good time for me to remind you that you can get the cinema look from pretty much anything if you know what you're doing. Remember, if you don't know what you're doing, the camera doesn't matter. You could even use a Pentax. We did get our hands on an FX30 and used it to film our preview video, which you can check out after you watch the fix. Don't go right now, wait till after the fix. Do it! Now let's do a quick rundown of some of the main specs. As I already mentioned, it has a 26 megapixel sensor that basically acts as a 20.1 megapixel sensor, being that its aspect ratio, and by aspect ratio, I really mean aspect ratio, is locked in at 16:9. There's a Bion Z XR processor, dual base ISO of 800 and 2500, 495 AF points covering 90% of the sensor with real-time IAF. There's 10-bit 422 4K video oversampled from 6K up to 60p with no pixel binning. There's a small 1.04 times crop factor, but that is pretty minor. You can capture 4K up to 120 frames per second with a 1.6 times crop. And for those of you who want to go super, you can shoot 1080 up to 240 frames per second. You can shoot in S-Cinetone and S-Log3 for up to 14 stops of dynamic range. Even though Sony is trying to target TikTokers, you know, like me, because I do awesome TikTok dances, my money don't jingle jiggle, it folds. I know, that's old, I'm old. What's the latest thing on TikTok? I don't know, because I haven't been on it. Not only are they targeting TikTokers and vloggers, they're also targeting new creators. This camera in the right hands is actually really nice. We like the quality we pulled off this camera. It was sharp and colorful and didn't require a ton of tweaking in post. If this camera is for you, it will set you back $1,800 for the body only and be available in October. We're definitely gonna dive deeper into this camera discussion on the next Raw Talk that comes out on Friday. Anyway, that's where we're gonna leave it. Thank you very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.